Hello, hi everyone.
Hello.
How is
Good
everybody
afternoon.
doing? I see 3 of you right now. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes because we had more people registered. So maybe they need a couple more minutes. At the same time, you can give me a thumbs up or write in the chat if you can see my screen well, and if you can hear me as well. Perfect, Philippa. Thank you very much. Looking good. I see we have Frank as well. Vivi. Hello, Vivi. And Vedika. Thanks for joining. Okay, one by one more people are joining. That's great. Pablo, hola. Nice to have you here. Okay. Okay, I think I will start, and then if more people join, then they're welcome. Okay, so welcome again officially to today's session on data migration. I'm excited to see people joining us for part 5 of our Share PLM webinar series. So we're right in the middle of our 10 weekly sessions that we've designed to dive deeper into the most critical aspects of digital transformation. So to start with a very short introduction about us, my name is Victoria and I'll be facilitating the webinar today. And with me, I have 2 incredible experts who join us. So I have on one side, Beatriz Gonzalez, the CEO of Share PLM. Hi, Beatriz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
And on the other side, we have Thomas Winden, Managing Director at Share PLM Germany. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Victoria. Hi, everybody.
So, Bea, Thomas, thank you very much for being here to guide us through this session and sharing your experiences. So, as I said before, we are right now in the middle in week 5 of the series. So we have already covered topics like vision and narrative, change readiness, requirements and specifications, and last week we touched upon pilots and MVPs. So if you weren't able to join us in the past weeks, no problem, because you can find all the sessions already uploaded in our YouTube channel. And also you can find them in the library section on webinars.shareplm.com. And so during the next weeks, we'll focus on how to move into a full system implementation and validation. And later on, we'll see the human element with adoption and engagement, ensuring that we can scale and improve while effectively implementing change across the organization. And so this is our agenda. So our roadmap for today will cover the following. So we'll start by sharing past experiences to identify common, let's call them silent killers, and technical pain points. After that, we'll move into how to transition from assessing your current data mess into a more structured data and process blueprint. Then we'll get into integrating the migration strategy and the OCM toolkit to manage change and also ensure user adoption. I will then take a look into the technical heavy lifting, all right, of data validation and the roadmap for a successful day one deployment. And then in the end, of course, we're going to do a final wrap up as well as a Q&A section. So for today's session, we will use Mentimeter so we can make it more engaging and also get your insights as well. So for those ones who have joined the past webinars, you already know how it works. For those of you who see Mentimeter for the first time, don't worry, it's like super easy to use. So you can either take your phone and scan the QR code you see on your screen. Otherwise, you can just type menti.com and then use the code you see on your screen. So I will wait a few moments here to see how many of you are able to get in. It should be easy. Let me see. Okay. Okay, I see 8 people in. You can also enter later. That's no problem. Perfect. 11 in. Great. Okay, so I think we can start. Okay, I'm going to start straight with our audience now that you're in Menti. Now, I want you to think, when you hear data migration, what is the first word that comes to mind? It can be whatever. Just 1 or 2 words. Pain. All right. We start in a, I love that. Late, risk. Okay, I see more like negative connotations. Not successful, problems. All right. Complex topic. It is indeed. The first thing you should do, I guess. Risk. Okay. Yeah, most of these words have negative connotations, but we understand because it's a very complex topic. Not successful, cleanup, mapping. All right. Okay. We'll try to make it a bit more positive for you guys after this webinar. Okay. Thanks for opening your hearts with this question here. So let's see the second one. So before we actually dive into more technical topics, I would like to ask you, what are you actually expecting to learn today? Is there anything specific that you expect us to focus on, or is there any specific problem in your organization right now that you are looking for more insights or more solutions? Okay, so people are saying how to make migrations work. We are going to present a process that we use. Right methodology, deal with resistance, great. Best practices for planning and executing a successful data migration, migration strategy, typical pitfalls. Someone else says that they're actually new to data migration, so they're just looking to learn, I guess, in general about the topic. How to avoid chaos. I think we're pretty much going to touch upon all the topics that people are expecting to learn in this session. So I'm actually very excited for this session because data migration has been coming up a lot in almost every webinar we've done. So I'm excited for our speakers' insights. Okay. Moving on. So now this is a ranking question. So I would like you to rank the following pain points when it comes to data migration. So here you have the following categories: data quality, missing goals and KPI definition, not enough time, moving targets, and migration tools not working properly. So in number 1, I want you to put the biggest pain, and then 5, something that's still a pain, but maybe not your priority or so right now. Okay. I'm going to give some more time for more people to respond. So far, we see most people have said data quality is number 1 pain point, biggest pain point. Whereas not having enough time is still an issue, but maybe not the biggest one. Okay, data quality is still number 1, followed by moving targets. And then missing goals and migration tools not working properly are somewhere in the middle. All right. So we're keeping data quality and moving targets from this question. And now one more question for you guys. And then again, this is an open-ended question. So if you could change one single thing, looking at your last data migration, what would it be? I'm going to give some more time here because I guess this is a bit more, maybe it requires more thinking. All right, we have our first answer in. A participant is saying they would change duplicates or better communication of roles and responsibilities. Another one says focus on data quality and data cleansing. Data mapping as well. So I guess there was a lack thereof. Better coordination between different data departments involved. Okay, so here we already see that some people are like more into the governance and communication side, whereas the other ones are more into the technical side. So we see problems, let's call them like that, in both areas. Better communication to users, again, data quality is coming up, spend enough time on data cleanup as part of data transformation before execution. Okay, I see a pattern here, and we'll be talking about that more extensively. So thanks for sharing. Make data analysis the #1 priority. These are all great answers. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to hand it over to our speakers now. So my first question for you guys would be, why do you think that data migrations often fail when it comes to digital transformations? So Thomas, what do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Vic. Yeah, and first of all, thanks to the answers to the questions before, because they reminded me really that some projects in my past life in business, being 15 years in the PLM department of a system integrator, and having to do with lots of migration projects, and I can really see several topics that I've seen also in the migration projects before. So I think I can somehow understand the points you mentioned. So why do the migration projects often fail in digital transformations? I think it's, and you all know that the systems become more complex and complex. And with that also the migration is becoming a very, very complex topic. There's a lot of things to think about. And it's technical things like the data quality you mentioned before, data cleaning that has to be done. It's process or project specific topics because there are dependencies. Usually migrations need somehow a stable target system, which is in general implemented during the migration takes place. So these dependencies also doesn't make the life easier for the data migration. You have sometimes very, very old data, which doesn't apply to the rules and mechanisms you have in the old system and in the new system. The systems are completely different in data models, object models, also rules and regulations and processes. This all makes it very, very complex and complicated. And therefore, and my experience is that this is often the starting point of failures. The migrations aren't prepared properly. So it's really a complex process. You have to think of many, many things that can go wrong. So you have to prepare it properly. And hopefully this is something that we can explain in the past 20 minutes or so, how our views on preparing this kind of process properly.
So Bea, Thomas has been talking about dependencies, old data, rules and regulations. But in your opinion, why do data migrations fail?
I think leveraging on what Thomas has said, yes, data migration, I agree with you, Thomas. They are very complex, but usually are companies that have huge experience on doing that. And even if they have a great preparation, it's how you communicate with the people, because at the end, the people has the information. The data is there in the systems, but how is it stored? Which data is important? Talking about what some of the attendees were saying about communication between departments. I have in data migration that engineering says this data is not relevant for us. We skip that from the migration, and 1 month later, purchasing come and say how you didn't migrate this. So yeah, it's kind of the technical teams needs to have the skills to involve the business, so they get the information, the quality of the information out for them, so the technical implementation can be really done properly.
Exactly.
So it's a mix of all the technical aspects and preparation and the contribution of the people in that preparation.
Exactly. And as we saw before, lots of people talked about communication as an implement, as a hurdle in their data migration. So thanks for bringing this
and
up there.
I would say that more than communicate to the users, it's the opposite. It's listening to them, because they have the business information and the data information.
Exactly. Okay. But now let's take it from the very beginning. So according to you guys, our audience, what is the first thing you do at the start of a migration? So we look at 4 different answers here. So do you start from the data extraction? Do you choose a migration tool? Do you design the migration blueprint, or do you analyze and clean the legacy data? What is the first point? What is the first thing you look at, the first action you take? Okay, we see that answers vary here. So not everyone starts from the same point. We see 3 participants said design the migration blueprint. Other 3 said analyze and clean the legacy data, while one of them would start from the data extraction. Okay, this is interesting. But now I will actually ask Bea the same question. For you, Bea, what is the very first thing you do at the start of a migration?
I think I agree with most of the answers, that it can be a combination of analyzing, discovering the current situation and the current data. And of course, you can extract the data to do those analyses if you have a better tool to analyze that, and compare and then avoid duplicates later, etc. So mainly it's this discovering phase that is not only about data, it's also about processes. What is the assist process? And here it's very important to understand the language of the current system and the people working on that. For example, if you are working in an ERP system, there are a lot of migrations between SAP and one PLM tool. And we know that they talk about material management. And in the PLM tools, we usually call it parts, right? This is a very simple example, but it's different language. So you need to understand the people language to be able to help them to transition later, and to be able to connect with them. And they might be like this screenshot that they have the working processes defined, but we know that most of the companies, they don't have them, right? So you need also to try to document them to be able to support them through the transition. But from the OCM part, the most important thing is understanding their language to be able to talk the current technical language. And regarding the data, it's very important the scoping of the data, because sometimes it's a huge amount and we need to decide, we need to understand very well where in which systems the data is stored, and what objects, what attributes. And people need to be very involved in signing off what is the scope of migration, right? So it's discovering what it is, and that everybody is aware and aligned. I have seen, for example, talking again about SAP, that we have in a material itself, we have information from different departments. And if you talk only with engineering, they don't know exactly what they are using other departments. right? So you need to discover really what it's huge database, which metadata is being used, right? So it's very important, the discovery phase, to really take time to understand everything properly.
Thank you, Bea, for walking us through this step and also giving us examples.
Maybe Thomas want to add something about the discovering phase from your experience?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this is a starting point. You have to see where you're standing in the current situation and where do you head for. And this is also something that we look deeper inside if we go to the next step of the process. So this is a kind of really flow from the first step, from the discover phase to the second phase. And maybe Victoria, you can shift to the next slide in order to show this kind of flow.
Sure, let me go here. Yes.
So and then we come to the translation and to the mapping, and this has two focus parts mainly. One is more or less the process part, where you see, okay, and that's what Beatriz also said. You have processes in place, the as-is processes, and you have processes that you want to cover in future. And maybe you implement a new PLM system in order to extend your digital thread, in order not just to focus on the engineering, but also establish the data flow from engineering to production. And with this, new processes come into place. And then you really have to map the old processes to the new processes in order then to figure out, and that will be the next step, the data blueprint, to figure out which kind of data you need. And that's also going one level deeper in the direction of the mapping. Which kind of object types do you need for the processes? Which kind of object types do you have in the system? In order to then do the data mapping, the third part in this process, to map really the single data fields to each other, or to define rules in between, or to join data sets, or to split them up, or whatever. And the most important point from my point of view, and that's also what Bea mentioned in the first part, is the data scoping. Because it's really the worst thing I've heard in the past is we need to migrate everything. And if you want to migrate everything means really every corrupt and outdated and old data that's in the systems, and that really causes pain. So try to do a smart scoping. Try to figure exactly out what do you need, what kind of data do you need. And that is what also was mentioned by Bea before. And this is something that has to be some kind of collaboration. You have to bring the departments together, especially, as I said, if it's going in the direction to extend the processes over different departments. You have to bring them together to figure out which kind of data is needed later on in production, for example. But then really looking on the data sets, on the scope, also with a view that says, what kind of data do we need to migrate? What can we archive? And what do we need any longer? So I don't think the answer migrate everything is the right answer from a business perspective. And from the migration perspective, really, it's the totally wrong answer. So try to limit the data as much as possible, but being clear that all the data you need is also migrated. And this is something coming to the human aspect again. You need to collaborate, you need to communicate, you need to bring the stakeholders together in order to figure out especially this second part. For the data mapping, you need also, you need business and IT, you need the experts from the old and the new system, bring them together. This kind of data blueprint, data mapping, bringing together the data and also the processes is really a collaborative step. And so it has to be done.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Thomas. Let me show you here the steps that we've seen so far in our proposed process. So we've Bea explained to us step 1, that is about discovering. And the objective here was to assess the current situation of the data and the processes. And then Thomas went over step 2, which was design. And here what we do is develop the data and process blueprint. And this, of course, involves defining specific mapping rules and also setting up the migration framework. Okay, now we have the first 2 steps and let's move on. Now here we have prepared the scaling question for you guys. So from a scale from 1 to 10, how prepared is your organization in the following 2 areas? So you have on one hand the technical roadmap, and then you also have on the other hand the user adoption. So where would you say that your organization sits at the moment? How prepared do you feel? Okay, there is a big difference between how prepared our participants feel for technical roadmap and for user adoption. So they feel quite confident when it comes to the technicalities, but not as much when it comes to user confidence in using the systems. Okay. Okay. So, of course, there is no doubt that all migration is about change, right? So, Bea, you're the expert in the topic. Can you tell us how can we manage the human's resistance to change?
Okay, so now considering that we know the ASIS process, the current data, and we also know the 2B process, and so we have our migration brief. We know what we are going to do, but we need to define the strategy. Those were some of the answers also of the first steps to do. And here it's very important to consider that data migration is not only a technical roadmap. Sometimes, most of the times, users are not involved or business at all in these phases. So they receive directly the data migrated with the new system, and they need to test there, right? So what we make sure here with the migration strategy is, okay, first to see our technical capacity. An example is here on the left side, that is a phased approach to data migration. This is for, sorry, I had problems with my internet. This is huge data migrations that you can phase it based on CAT, non-CAT documents, which is very different type of migration, etc. So this is the technical roadmap. And then you need to put the change OCM activities. And usually it's considered that OCM activities is training, is communication, and they are in parallel with the strategy. Come back, Vic, please. Yes, sorry, it's here, but come back, yeah. So here, for example, in this screenshot of roadmap, we can see green lines with the technical activities and lila things with the change management activities, and they are embedded in the plan, in the project plan. And some of the technical activities, they are considered as OCM. For example, if we are trying to understand the ASIS process, we are talking with the people, right? So we are doing maybe some interviews. They need to demo the system and explain how they work. We are learning their language when we talk with them. And then one thing that we do is document what we have received and understood, and then share with them that information to say, this is what we understood, how you work, and which data is important for you. Is this right? And it's very easy there to identify also gaps between the ASIS and 2B. So you are already managing expectations even at this point when you are in the discovery phase. So the strategy is very important to have the OCM, all the contact with the persons, very careful treated. And this is what it's about. And in the next slide, we have the example. If you joined the last webinar about the pilots project, we also developed this OCM toolkit. If you have already these assets prepared, it's very, very easy to connect it at the right time, at the right point of the project. So yeah, combining the technical tools with the technical activities with the OCM activities.
That's it. That was step 3 that Bea just explained, is about strategizing. So as she said, during this step, what you have to do is create the master strategy for execution, and of course the organizational change management toolkit. So after talking about strategies, we are going to talk about execution. So back to our audience, what do you consider as the most critical factor during the actual migration execution? So here again, you have 4 answers. Is the most critical factor the speed of data transfer? Maybe it's the continuous testing and validation of data integrity. Maybe it's the number of IT staff involved, or shutting down the old system as fast as possible. I was just about to say that we have a unanimous answer, but no. Okay, seems like continuous testing and validation of data integrity is considered as the most critical factor during the actual migration execution. And then we also have a person thinking that the speed of data transfer is actually more critical for them. Okay, but now let's see what our speakers think. So we saw that a lot of different critical actors when it comes to execution. But Thomas, how can we actually ensure that the execution stays on track, and also that our validation activities actually catch the issues before they reach the users?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I would like to stick it a little bit before we go to the process to the answers we've seen before. If we look at the speed of the data transfer, then it's really necessary to do testing with the data sets upfront and in several versions of data structures, and trying to enhance the tool set and the infrastructure to get the best speed out of it. This is something which is also quite iterative, and it's a process that has to be followed up in parallel for the optimization of the data transfer. Testing and validation was the part with the most answers, and that is really the crucial thing for data migration, because if you want to go live with the new data in the new system, there shouldn't be too many corrupted data sets or wrong data sets in it, or missing data. So you really need to do a proper testing before. And this, from my experience, is also something you should do in waves. So what you see here as one line is, from my experience, is at its best something that repeats several times. Depending on the tool set and the strategy you choose, the steps of data extraction, cleansing, data load, they can be somehow in a different way. So sometimes it's easier to clean the data in the source system. Sometimes you extract the data in a kind of staging area where you do data cleansing and preparation before you load the data in the new system. Sometimes it's maybe also easier to do the data cleaning in the new system, but that's only in a very few cases something that should be done or could be done. So it's very important to focus on the steps and start with easy data sets in order to set up the system, the infrastructure, and also establish the processes. So as we know, it's not just a technical thing. You have to have the people usually from the business and the IT department testing the data that is migrated. Establish the process with easy data sets where you see, okay, the data is migrated, and let's have a look at it from a technical perspective, from the business perspective, and then increase the amount of data, increase the complexity of data, and repeat these steps. And with that, the team that tests the data really comes into a flow. They get used to what they have to do. They know the test cases, they know where to look at, and they also know where have been the pitfalls in the past test cases. Let's have a deeper look at that point, and continue with the increasing the complexity and the amount of data. And it's crucial to have really test data that covers all of the structures and the complexity of the productive data. And if you then, with that kind of data sets and with some kind of production copy that you use for the test runs of the migration, if you then come to a point that you say, okay, we think we covered all of the cases, we think we covered all of the data constellations, then do really a dry run. Maybe not with all of the data, but with a data set where you can say, okay, we're quite sure that that covers all. Do the dry run, and then after that, do really a dry run with all of the data, check it before you go live and do the live migration. So it's a step. It's something which really should be repeated, and is some iterative process to be done. And this also helps really the people involved to collaborate together, the whole team of preparing the migration, executing the migration, doing the tests from a technical and business perspective. They all need to grow together as a team in order to fulfill these steps then later on in a high professional and fast manner.
Thank you, Tom, for
the basics, of course. Yes, you have to have the test cases. You have to have tools how to document the test results. You have to have some reports showing where are you, how many issues have to be resolved, and so on. But that's business as usual, I would say.
Exactly. Thanks for walking us through this step. Let me just give a very quick overview again. We saw that step 4 is about implementation. So here is where we execute the migration step, as Thomas was saying, including all the testing and validation. The deliverables include migration execution and, of course, test and validation documents. And now we're approaching to the last step. So I would like to ask Bea, what does the rollout actually look like? And also, how do we resolve post-migration tasks to actually keep the system healthy?
So yeah, here I think it's a normal deployment. It doesn't, so it's the migrated data, but maybe you are also rolling out new functionalities. So at the end, this phase is very important. It's the hypercare, so people need to feel safe. So you need to have a good communication hub in place where they can share their problems. They can raise tickets also very quick and they are solved. Maybe sending someone on site to the office to support those users. So at the end is having the strategy, deployment strategy, and making sure that everyone is aware of that and all the support tools that they will be available after that day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me just give a quick overview again of step 5, which in our last process we call step of the process we call it deploy. And this is, as Bea said, where you prepare the go live, including the training activities, and of course, provide a good structure for supporting the users with the post-migration tasks. Now, as we're approaching the end of the session, I would like to ask you one last thing. So what is one takeaway from this session? Something that you found insightful, something that you would like to discuss with your colleagues, something maybe you had an aha moment, you hadn't thought of it before, something you'd like to share with your team? Any examples from our speaker's experience, maybe? It's great to see the process laid out and explained so clearly. Oh, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Focusing on the to-be process is very important.
Absolutely, yeah.
Agreed.
I would add on that is the to-be, sometimes the to-be process, it's already defined and it exists, and you need to migrate people that they need to follow the process, right? So I think it's more important, even the to-be that is already fixed, is being able to connect the as-is with the to-be. So people feel easy to connect how they work now, what is going exactly to change in the new way. So they don't feel fear because they don't know the new process. So they will say, okay, this that I do in this way, it's going to be easy. It will be in another way, but it will be this way. So it's making that bridge with make people trust.
That's a great recommendation, Bea. Thank you.
And also managing expectations, because sometimes the to-be processes can be some parts worse or worse for that users, because they need to introduce more data, for example, that they have done previously. So it's very important to understand the as-is to manage their expectations with the to-be, so they don't have a surprise.
And I very much like the third one, the structured preparation and rollout. And this really needs to cover, as we said before, not just the technical aspects, but also the human aspects in order to be successful. Yeah, it's I like this one.
And then we also have someone saying thing also about formation before migration testing.
Yes, I totally agree with that. They cannot test if they don't have any basic. And for example, some of the things that I have seen that the technical integrator are doing is that it's very common in the industry to have one testing called system integration testing that is usually performed only by the technical people. And my experience and my recommendation is that you need to have some stakeholders from the business, maybe 1 or 2 persons, because in that point is sooner you can discover what is not working and you have more time to fix it, and then you have the UAT, as Thomas was saying, also small pieces, but involve the business in testing from day one, even when the technical people is testing, because if not, you are not going to have time to fix some bugs, and then you will go live with the bugs, and sometimes you need to reload data and come back. So this is also quite common, sadly.
Yeah, it must go hand in hand, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, now before we actually go to the Q&A section of our webinar, I would like to ask our speakers one last question. What is one practical tip you would like to leave the audience with today? This can be anything about our process or anything about your personal experience after working in so many data migration projects. Thomas, I'll start with you and your tip.
Yeah, and my recommendation would be really choose wisely which data you really need in the new system. I mean, that seems to be a very technical answer, but it isn't, because the data you choose to migrate must go hand in hand with the vision you have for the new PLM system. So if you do it right, from our perspective, you have a vision for the program, and the data you choose for the migration must fit to that vision, because then you can really define the story for everybody being involved in the migration, that she or he understands why has the data to be migrated, where do I have to look at, why is it important, and why is it maybe not important to migrate this kind of data despite I like it so much or whatever. So it's not just the technical aspect, but it's something that has to be in line with the overall vision and the goals of the project.
I love that. So choose your data wisely. That's Thomas' tip. What about you, Bea? Any good tips for our audience?
I think it's a very good tip, and it's at the core of the data migration. If you don't do that step right, it doesn't. The other aspects are not important any longer. But to complement that, my tip, it would be like consider data migrations an opportunity to involve the people in the new transformation, in the change, and every technical activity that has contact with the business, treat it with care, thinking that you are building trust for the future developments and implementation. So OCM is everything, it's everywhere.
I love that. So we have choose your data wisely and also see migration as an opportunity to involve your people. I love both of the tips. Okay, but now it's our Q&A time. So you can either drop your questions in the chat, or you can just write them as a question in our Mentimeter and they will pop out on the screen. So don't be shy, hit our speakers with questions. Okay, someone had it ready, I believe. Great. How do you recommend running parallel operations during cutover? Should we freeze new product introduction during migration? Or is there a phased approach that minimizes business disruption?
That's a great question. I would like to tend to an answer that usually lawyers do, like it depends, but that doesn't help at all in this case. I would say it's really about how is your schedule regarding new products? Does it allow a time of maybe 2 or 3 months not introducing new products? I mean, nowadays, many of the companies don't have that time. So a phased approach could not only be helpful for this, but also be helpful for, getting more used to the new system, to the new data, and figuring out issues with the data migration, and also, migrate the data, and during the migration, continue to work, of course, because you can't send all the people on vacation for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks usually, and then do a data migration afterwards, for what change, and this usually can be done then on a weekend, so you don't have some kind of interruptions in the business. So I've seen several projects where it worked quite well with this phased approach.
Yes, I agree with Thomas, and I'm more black and white, but it's always focusing on minimizing the business disruption, right? The company needs to continue the business, and we need to make sure that the people is not overwhelmed, because the lot of transformation we hear, I don't have time for testing, I don't have time to meet 8 times to decide which data we want to extract. So if we want to make things properly and have the business input, we need to measure that we are not disrupting so much, or trying to convince them, or to get some resources from the business that can have some time assigned to these kind of activities. So yeah.
Thank you both. Hopefully we covered this person's question. We can move on to the second one. The person asks, what is the best first step to getting people involved and engaged in a data migration? And also, why should they be interested?
I mean,
Bea, what do you think?
Yeah, it depends on the teams, the stakeholders. For example, very good example is services. Data for services, it's critical in the industry, because they are continuously searching for information in the company system, what has been sorted with customers, spare parts, etc. So for them, it's clear a quick win moving, for example, if they are looking for data in 4 systems and all those 4 systems are migrated to a common source of truth, for them it's very intuitive to know why they are going to engage. So at the end is having the narrative for these different teams. And this is why they are going to be interested. So we have cases that to find a spare part, they have spent 3 hours before, and after the data migration to a single system, it took 5 minutes to search for it, or to say, I haven't found it, right? So it's very clear. So understanding the business case and being able to communicate with each one of the stakeholders. For engineering, also the integration, direct integration with CAD and PLM, it's yeah, it's the modern way of working, right? So this everyone has some advantage and interest at the end. We only need to know what people are impacting.
I see Thomas quietly agreeing in everything you've said so far, right, Thomas?
Quietly, not 100%.
No, 100%, absolutely. And this sticks also to the first webinars of the series, really looking at the vision and the narrative, and underlines why this is so important at the beginning of such kind of transformation or project or initiative, however you call it, to bring the people in line and to convince them with a good goal to reach, which brings progress to the company and to the people, and with that they also should be interested in supporting the migration. Sometimes it needs some more support, of course, because not everybody is shouting out, "Yeah, migration!"
Yeah.
But you really need to have the vision and the goals, what you reach with it, to convince the people.
Yeah. And now that Thomas reminds me that it also, that's a very good point, that we always forget for the data migration, the vision for the global transformation. We think that is a task that we need to perform. And also, yeah, you remind me that also we go down to the personal wishes of that person. That, for example, a young employee can be that you are going to learn a new system, more modern system that will give you skills. And you cannot put it that like officially, but the project team at the end, if you know who you are impacting, you are able to convey the benefits in different ways.
Thank you both, and thank you to the participant to ask this question. Like we saw, the answer had many layers.
Yep.
Let's move to the third question now. Someone is asking, how do we handle engineering connectivity in situations where one is migrating product data from one PLM system to another and at the same time maintaining a digital thread?
I don't understand the question.
I would see it a little bit related to the first question. And for me, it looks like that maybe we can get some more details to that question. It seems you have already a kind of digital thread implemented, and then you replace the PLM system, do the data migration.
Or you have another PLM system in the company. Yeah. Or what's the question exactly?
Yeah, and then I would really say, like Bea said, the staged migration is the key to success, to migrate the data. Could be some kind of sizing the data product by product, or plant by plant, or region by region, and with that doing this kind of migrations over the weekend, not to interrupt the business, or doing a larger migration set, working on the old system and then the delta migration before the go live, to have everything in the new system and do not interrupt the business. So this is something where you really have to look a little bit more into the details, if it's possible to make a product-wise migration in small steps. But of course, you have to connect the new PLM system to the digital thread, like the old one was. Have the interfaces in place when you finish the migration and continue with the new system.
As I see,
what do you think, Thomas? Do we need, even if it's the product data, but do we need the phase approach based on projects that use those product data to say, okay, we start a new project, so we need to have this product data available, but we migrate the people when the project starts? Or how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have really completely new products, not using old components or parts or whatever, but this is not that often, I think, from my experience. So it's not so easy to start completely in a new products in a new system without having some kind of bidirectional integration also to the old system, to use the old parts and components. But it's something,
at least for visibility and accessibility to the old system.
Yeah. it's a little bit hard to answer this question and precisely without some more background information. But I think this is something where we also could afterwards go into the discussion. I mean, our contact data should be available. So if we want to discuss about this topic a little bit more, than just contact us.
All right, as I see that we just have 5 minutes left, let's squeeze in this last question before I close the session. So how to prioritize data to migrate if teams cannot agree on what is essential? How do we feel about this question?
I'm thinking. So I think focusing on the essential first, make them agree on the essential to then be able to prioritize, right? Because if not, it doesn't mind what you prioritize, that they are going to complain after it anyway. So yeah, focusing on the essential, why they are having so much. And here it would be nice to have more information also about the question.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you really have a to-be process and you have the as-is process, then of course not for every field, and it's clear and obvious if this has to be migrated or not, or every data set. But this is a start for a discussion. And of course you need, and this leads me to the webinar we had 2 weeks ago regarding the requirements. At the end, you need someone, but this is only the last way how it works. You need someone who decides. So you don't have the time for endless discussions about, do we need the data before December 1st or before November 1st? Yeah.
Yes.
If it's about these kind of marginal things to discuss, someone has to decide. Yeah. If it's really about some crucial topics, some essentials, these questions should not come up if the as-is and to-be processes are defined properly.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Thomas. Having deadlines and sign-offs as it needs to in the data migrations are critical, because if not, we go into a lot of delay also. That will affect the go live.
Exactly. So, all right. Yeah. Thank you very much for.
We have one more question in the chat. Do we have framework tools to reduce headache?
Ibuprofen.
I would say from a process and OCM perspective, what we prepared today is some kind of maybe painkiller, at least for some of the pains. If it's going in the direction of migration tools, I have to be a little bit careful with my answers, as having worked long years for a system integrator with some migration tools. So I don't want to make any advertisings, but I think there are a few companies really offering products that are established in the market for migration and integration. So with that and the reference cases they have, this could be also some kind of painkiller or migration ibuprofen to help. So rely on tools that have been proved maybe in the same industry or with the same PLM systems and combinations. So you know that you get something which is not like Jugendforscht, I would say, in Germany.
Perfect. Thank you both for answering our audience's questions. And now, before we leave you, we would like to say that we're excited to announce that after the success we had last year, we're organizing again the Share PLM Summit, which is an event to bring together people from both the PLM and the change management world. And this year we're meeting in Jerez de la Frontera in Andalusia, in the south of Spain, on the 19th and 20th of May. So the event will take place in a bodega, just like last year. And of course, we would love to see you there in person. You can learn more by visiting our website, summit.shareplm.com. And of course, remember, you can join us again next week on March 12th, again at the same time, for part 6 of our 10-week webinar series. So next week, we'll talk about system implementation. So how can you actually align system configuration with business processes and also ensure that the system enables work instead of slowing it down? And of course, you can do that by visiting our website, webinars.shareplm.com. And yes, I would like to say thank you to everyone who proactively participated today and also sharing your thoughts with us during the webinar. And of course, our wonderful speakers for sharing their experiences, their insights, and also answering your questions. So thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you very much to everyone and to you, Victoria, for making it so easier and fun.
Yeah,
And
thanks,
hopefully
Vic,
we'll
for the
see all of you.
facilitation.
No problem.
Yeah. And thanks for the great input and questions. That was really helpful to have it a vital and great, also fun-making webinar. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you next week.
Hopefully see you next
See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.